The secret truth about elves is not written in any book you have read. For centuries, we have admired their grace, their magic, their seeming immortality. But beneath the surface of their perfect faces lies something the gods never meant us to see. I discovered it in ancient text, fragments hidden between common histories, in memories that could not possibly be my own. The truth burns cold as winter starlight, revealing not a blessing but a prison of divine making. What if everything we believed about elven nature was carefully constructed to hide something far more terrible and far more wonderful? I remember the day I stopped believing in immortality, not as a concept, but as a gift. The sunlight streamed through ancient boughs of the verdant court, casting dappled shadows across my skin that had not aged in 3 centuries. I stood before the mirror of seasons, a relic older than my bloodline, watching my reflection with growing unease. My face was perfect, unmarred by time, my eyes clear as morning dew. But behind them swirled something wrong, something broken. 1,000 voices, whispering memories I never lived. 1,000 lives crying out through the perfect prison of my flesh. My name is Kalia Moonshadow. I am the appointed historian of the verdant courts, keeper of our people's memory. But what if our memory is a lie? What if our eternal grace is not a blessing but a chain, binding us to an endless cycle we never chose? The humans envy us. They write songs of our beauty, our wisdom, our seemingly endless days. They do not know what I now know. They do not hear what I now hear. The voices of my past selves bleeding through the veil, each one a fragment of a soul reborn countless times. Not immortality, imprisonment. I trace my fingers along the ancient texts in my private chamber. Forbidden knowledge collected over decades. The truth of what it means to be elven, hidden beneath layers of myth and ceremony. The weave itself binds us, generation after generation. When we die, we do not pass beyond. We return, memories wiped clean, to begin again, to serve again, to forget again. But I remember, flashes at first, dreams that felt too real. A battle I never fought, a lover I never touched, a betrayal I never suffered. Each memory sharp as glass, cutting through the perfect serenity that marks our kind. Each recollection, a transgression against the divine order established by Corellon himself. Tonight I will attempt what no elf has dared in 10,000 years. I will sever the chain of rebirth. I will free not just myself, but all who share my blood. I may destroy what it means to be elven. I may shatter the very soul of my people. But to live forever in beautiful ignorance, to serve endlessly without choice, is not life. It is not immortality. It is a prison gilded with starlight and song. This is my testimony. This is my confession. This is my prayer to whatever true gods may exist beyond the veil we cannot pierce. Judge me not, the chaos I may unleash, but by the truth I sought to reveal. For what is an elf but memory made flesh? And what is flesh without the freedom to truly die? The scholars teach us that elves are Corellon's chosen, born of his blood when Grumsh pierced his perfect form with a spear during the Dawn War. We are told our long lives are his blessing, our grace his divine touch upon the world. We are told we remember our past lives in fragments because we are connected to the eternal dream of our Creator God. Beautiful lies, repeated for generations, without question. I discovered the first inconsistency 342 years ago, while transcribing the memoirs of Lady Cylindra, who served as royal consort during the twilight court of the Fourth Age. Her writings described the fall of Mithdrana with such precision, such emotional detail, that it could not have been historical research. She wrote of smelling the smoke as drow fire scorched the world tree. She described the exact sound of mythallar crystals shattering under demonic claws. But Lady Cylindra was born 4 centuries after Mithrandir fell. Her memories could not have been her own. I dismissed it then as poetic license, a historian taking creative liberties. But that was merely the first thread pulled loose from the tapestry. The second came during the ritual of renewal, when I was chosen to drink from the chalice of stars. The sacred wine is said to connect us more deeply to our ancestors, to honor the endless cycle of elven rebirth. No one questions why we perform this ritual. It is tradition. It is faith. When the liquid touched my lips, I saw not gentle memories of ancestors, but myself. Myself wearing armor I never donned, wielding a blade I never held, loving a woman I never met. I saw my death at the hands of a drow assassin. I felt the knife slide between my ribs, tasted blood on my tongue, heard my last breath rattle from lungs now dust for a millennium. I collapsed during ceremony. The high priest claimed it was the strength of my connection to our past. They celebrated me, honored me, promoted me to chief historian of the court. They did not see the horror dawning in my eyes. They did not understand that I had glimpsed the truth. We are not reborn with purpose. We are caught, trapped in the weave like insects in amber, forced to live and die and live again without true choice or growth. Our memories are not gifts but fragments of a broken whole, purposely kept from us lest we question the nature of our existence. The ritual of renewal is not celebration, but reinforcement of our chains. The wine contains essence of the Feywild itself, strengthening the magical bonds that keep our souls tethered to this endless cycle. I began my research in secret, ancient texts smuggled from forgotten temples, whispered conversations with the oldest of our kind, those beginning to feel the weight of too many lives pressing against the walls of their minds. Dreams and visions recorded meticulously, patterns emerging from the chaos of borrowed memory. The truth assembled itself like a mosaic, each piece horrifying in its implications. The Seldarine, our pantheon of gods, are not our benefactors but our wardens. Corellon's tears did not create us out of love, but necessity. We are vessels for fragments of divine power, each rebirth a renewal of the prison. What crime did we commit to deserve this fate? What ancient transgression cursed us to eternal recurrence? The texts speak only in riddles and metaphors. Something about a rebellion, something about a choice offered and refused, something about the first elves reaching for godhood themselves. The exact nature of our transgression is lost to time, but the punishment remains. Perfect, beautiful, immortal punishment. I stand now at the edge of heresy. To break the cycle, defy the gods themselves. To free our souls might destroy what makes us elven, perhaps our grace, our patience, our connection to magic itself depends upon this cycle of rebirth. But I cannot turn away from truth once glimpsed. I cannot pretend I do not hear the chorus of past selves crying out for true death, true freedom, true choice. Tomorrow, I enter the heart of the Feywild, where the barriers between lives grow thin. I carry ancient words of unbinding, spells that may sever the silver cord, connecting us to endless rebirth. I may not return. I may be obliterated, my soul scattered to true oblivion, but I go willingly. For the first time in uncounted lives, I choose my path. For the first time since the Dawn War, I defy the divine plan set before me, and in that defiance, perhaps I am more truly elven than I have ever been. The Feywild writhes around me, a realm of beauty and terror intertwined. Colors no mortal eyes were meant to see paint the landscape in impossible hues. Time flows like water here, sometimes rushing forward, sometimes pooling in eddies of perfect stillness. This is the realm from which our immortality was born, the source of the magic that binds our souls to endless rebirth. I make my way toward the center, where the Court of Stars holds permanent revelry. Titania and Oberon rule here, but they are not my quarry. I seek something older, something that predates even the Fey royalty. I seek the Loom of Lives, the ancient artifact said to be the physical manifestation of the Weave's connection to elven souls. The path shifts beneath my feet, trying to lead me astray. The Feywild resists my purpose. It knows why I have come. Whispers follow me through groves of silver trees. Eyes watch from pools of liquid moonlight. I am unwelcome here. A blasphemer walking boldly into the sanctuary of my people's prison. Turn back, historian. A voice calls from within a ring of toadstools. A small fey creature sits cross-legged at its center, skin like bark and eyes like polished amber. What you seek will undo more than yourself. I seek truth, I reply, hand resting on the hilt of my silver dagger. Not that steel would avail me much here, but the gesture offers comfort. Truth? The creature laughs, a sound like breaking glass. Truth is relative in the realm of dreams and stories. Your people chose this path long ago. Who are you to unmake that choice? I made no such choice, I say firmly. Nor did any elf now living. We were never asked. We were never told. We simply exist in beautiful ignorance, living and dying and returning without understanding why. And you think understanding will bring peace? The creature's smile reveals teeth like thorns. Knowledge is rarely the comfort mortals imagine it to be. I do not seek comfort, I reply. I seek freedom. The creature's expression shifts from amusement to something like pity. Freedom is an illusion, even for those not bound as your kind are, but I cannot stop you from your folly. The loom lies at the heart of the laughing glade. Follow the path of silver leaves. Listen not to the voices that call your name. Drink nothing. Eat nothing. Accept no gifts. Remember nothing but your purpose. With those cryptic warnings, the creature dissolves into a swirl of autumn leaves, scattered by a wind I cannot feel. I continue deeper into the Feywild. The silver path appears before me, formed of fallen leaves that shimmer with inner light. I follow it resolutely, ignoring the whispers that grow louder with each step. They call to me in voices I almost recognize, voices from past lives, trying to dissuade me from my course. They show me visions of glory, an elven empire restored to its ancient splendor, myself upon a throne of living wood, crowned in stars. They show me visions of love, a partner whose face shifts between strangers, all beloved, all lost to time. They offer me perfect memory without the pain of understanding. They offer me serene ignorance and eternal beauty. I reject them all and press forward. The laughing glade reveals itself suddenly, as if I have passed through an invisible curtain. The clearing is perfectly circular, ringed by trees whose trunks are inscribed with flowing script in a language older than any I have studied. At the center stands the loom. It is not what I expected, not some grand, imposing artifact of obvious power. It is simple, elegant, a wooden frame holding vertical threads of light. Between the threads, patterns form and dissolve. Faces appear momentarily, then fade. Lives flash like lightning between strands. I see myself reflected 1,000 times across its shimmering surface. Standing before it is a figure I know from ancient texts, but never truly believed existed. Labalas Enereth, elven god of time and longevity, keeper of the histories. His face is both ancient and youthful, his eyes pools of stars. He watches me approach without surprise. He says, his voice resonating through my bones, "You have journeyed far to reach this place." I bow my head slightly, out of respect rather than worship. "Lord of Time, you know why I have come. I have known since before you were born." This time, a smile touches his ageless face. "Perhaps before all your times. This moment has repeated itself throughout the great cycle. You are not the first to discover the truth. You will not be the last to stand before the loom with thoughts of unmaking." His words strike me like physical blows. Others have come before. What happened to them? Labela's gestures to the loom. "See for yourself." I step closer, peering into the weaving threads of light. I see faces that could be my own. In different times, different circumstances, I see them standing where I now stand. I see them turning away, returning to lives of beautiful ignorance. I see them attempting to sever the threads and being consumed by divine fire. I see them succeeding, only to fade from existence, unmade not just in body but in soul. None have succeeded, I whisper. Some have, Labalas corrects me. But success is not what they imagined it would be. To be severed from the cycle is to be severed from what makes you elven. Those who broke free did not find the liberation they sought. They found only isolation, their souls adrift without anchor, eventually dissolving into the cosmic void. So we are trapped, I say bitterly, condemned to this cycle with no escape. Is it truly a prison to be reborn into beauty and wonder? Labelas asks gently. Is it punishment to live many lives rather than one? To experience love and loss and joy across the span of ages? To grow in wisdom through lifetimes rather than mere years? It is a prison if we cannot choose otherwise, I reply firmly. It is a trap if the truth is hidden from us. Why? Why conceal this from your own children? Why not tell us the nature of our existence? Labelas sighs, a sound like wind through ancient ruins. Because knowledge brings pain. Because most elves, when they learn the truth, react as you have, with horror rather than acceptance. Because the burden of remembering every life, every death, every loss would crush even the strongest soul. So, you decided for all of us, I say, anger rising in my voice. You gods determined that ignorance was preferable to choice. We gave you long life, connection to magic, beauty that endures through ages. Labelas counters. We gave you art and music and wisdom, beyond what any short-lived race could achieve. The price is the cycle. The price is the binding of souls to the weave. I step toward the loom, my hand outstretched toward the glimmering threads. And if I choose to pay a different price, if I choose true death over false immortality, Labelas does not stop me. Then you choose as others have before you. But know this, historian, the severing affects not just your soul, but all connected to you by blood and bond. Your family, your friends, all who share your lineage will be cut from the pattern. Are you prepared to choose oblivion not just for yourself, but for all of them? Consent? My hand falters mere inches from the shining threads. I had not considered this. In my righteous quest for truth, I had imagined only my own liberation, not the far-reaching consequences for those I love. They deserve to know, I whisper. They deserve the truth. And who appointed you the arbiter of truth? Labelas asks. Who granted you the right to shatter the beautiful illusion that gives your people purpose and peace? Some truths are burdens, historian. Some knowledge is poison to the soul. I withdraw my hand slowly. What would you have me do? Return to the verdant court and pretend I know nothing? Live a lie? Labelas smiles sadly. I would have you choose as all who have stood where you stand must choose, but choose with full understanding of what is at stake. Not just your soul, but the souls of countless others. Not just this life, but all lives to come. He gestures, and the loom's pattern shifts. I see not just myself, but all elves, our souls interconnected, in patterns of breathtaking complexity and beauty. I see how the severing of one thread unravels hundreds more. I see the pattern fraying, weakening. We are bound, not just to the cycle, but to each other, Labalus explains. This is the secret truth that few comprehend. Elven souls are not merely reborn, they are woven together across time. Your actions in one life ripple forward and backward, affecting all other elves in ways too subtle to perceive but too significant to ignore. I stare at the pattern, seeing for the first time the full scope of what I had planned to destroy. Not just my own cycle of rebirth, but a tapestry of interconnected lives spanning millennia. The weight of that responsibility settles upon me like a mountain. Is there no middle path? I ask finally. Must it be either complete ignorance or complete destruction? Labalus studies me, his starlit eyes unreadable. What middle path would you propose, historian? Truth, I say simply. Not hidden from those who well seek it. Not forced upon those who are content, but available to any who ask the right questions, who follow the right threads. Truth without choice is merely another prison, Labalus counters. What would you do with this truth, if permitted to retain it? I consider his question carefully. What indeed? Return to the verdant court as a herald of unwelcome revelation? Become a prophet of cosmic despair? Neither serves my people. I would become a keeper of the truth. I say slowly. Not its proclaimer. I would guide those who, like me, begin to remember too much, who feel the weight of past lives pressing against their minds. I would help them understand without breaking. I would teach acceptance without surrender. Labalus is silent for a long moment, his gaze shifting between me and the loom. Finally he nods. There is precedent for what you propose. In each age, a few are chosen to remember, to serve as anchors between past and future, to help those who begin to glimpse beyond the veil. Hope stirs within me. You would allow this? It is not without risk, Labalus warns. To remember fully is to carry the burden of many lives, sorrows accumulated across centuries, regrets that have no remedy, loves lost to the grinding wheel of time. Few minds can contain such vastness without fracturing. I am willing to try, I say firmly, then approach the loom. Labalus commands, but not to sever, to connect more deeply, to become a thread that runs true through the pattern, visible from all angles of time. With trepidation, I step forward. This time, when I extend my hand toward the shimmering threads, Labalus does not warn me away. My fingers touch light that feels solid yet fluid, cold yet burning. The sensation rushes up my arm, into my chest, into my mind, and I remember, not fragments, not flashes, everything. I am Kalia the chronicler, copying ancient texts by candlelight during the long night when drow shadows covered the moon. Bladesinger, dancing through ranks of hobgoblin invaders, my sword leaving trails of blue fire in the air. I am Kalia the heartbroken, holding my beloved as plague takes her, powerless despite all my magic to halt death's advance. I am Kalia the betrayer, selling secrets to human merchants for gold, to buy rare components for spells of extended life. I am Kalia the penitent, spending a century in meditation atop a lonely mountain, seeking forgiveness from gods who remain silent. Lives upon lives cascade through me. I have been hero and villain, sage and fool, loyal friend and bitter enemy. I have died peacefully in bed, surrounded by generations of family. I have died alone in dungeons, tortured by enemies whose names are now forgotten by history. Through it all runs a single thread, a continuity of essence that is unmistakably me, despite the variations in circumstance and choice. I see my own nature reflected across 1,000 lifetimes, my strengths and weaknesses playing out in endless permutations. I see my connections to others, souls I have loved and hated, helped and harmed, across the tapestry of time. I see how we have danced together through the ages, sometimes as family, sometimes as strangers, always connected by invisible threads stronger than fate. When I return to myself, standing before the loom in the laughing glade, I am weeping. Libellus watches me with compassion, but without surprise. He says softly, "Now you see, so much love," I whisper, "so much loss. How do we bear it?" "By forgetting," Libellus replies. "By beginning each life anew, unburdened by the weight of all that came before. This is our gift to you, not our punishment." The slate wiped clean, the page turned fresh, but not completely clean, I observe. We retain impressions, talents, preferences, enough to provide continuity without crushing us beneath accumulated memory. Yes, Libellus acknowledges, the balance is delicate. Too much remembrance leads to madness. Too little severs the thread of growth across lives. I look up at him, suddenly understanding something that had eluded me. This cycle, it isn't eternal, is it? It has purpose. We are moving towards something. A smile touches the god's ageless face, perceptive as always. Yes, historian, the cycle is not merely repetition, it is spiral. With each turn, the collective soul of elvenkind evolves, slowly, over eons, but with definite direction. Toward what end? I ask, both eager and afraid to hear the answer. Libellus shakes his head. That, I cannot tell you. Some knowledge belongs only to the gods. Some destinations can only be reached by those who do not know they are traveling. I want to press him further, but I sense it would be futile. Instead, I ask, what happens now? What would you have me do with these memories, this understanding? Return to the verdant court, Libellus instructs. Resume your role as historian, but now you will serve a deeper purpose. You will watch for others like yourself, those beginning to remember too much. You will guide them gently toward understanding without allowing them to shatter the pattern. And those who, like me, wish to break free, I challenge. Those who see the cycle as prison rather than gift, bring them here, Libellus says simply. Let them stand before the loom as you have. Let them see the full pattern before they choose to tear it asunder. Few, when confronted with the true scope of our interconnection, still choose severance. I consider his words carefully. It is not perfect freedom he offers, not complete autonomy, but it is choice informed by understanding, which is more than I had before. I accept this role, I say finally, though I reserve the right to question, to challenge, to seek better paths should they exist. Libellus laughs, a sound like distant chimes. I would expect nothing less from you, in any lifetime. Questioning is your nature, historian. It always has been. He touches my forehead lightly. Go, now. The way back will be clearer than the way here, but remember, the memories you now carry are both gift and burden. Share them judiciously, and only with those ready to receive them. I bow deeply, no longer out of mere courtesy but genuine respect. I have glimpsed a small portion of the divine plan, and while I still harbor doubts and questions, I better understand the compassion behind the seeming cruelty of hidden truth. As I turn to leave the laughing glade, Labalus calls after me. One more thing, historian. I pause, looking back over my shoulder. The choice remains yours, always. Should you decide, in this life or any future one, that the burden is too great, the loom will be waiting. The threads can still be cut. Remember that. With those words echoing in my mind, I begin the long journey back to the verdant court, carrying memories of 1,000 lifetimes and the terrible, wonderful truth about what it means to be elven. The return to the verdant court was simpler than I anticipated. No one questioned my absence. Time flows differently in the Feywild, and what felt like days to me had been mere hours in the material realm. I slipped back into my role as chief historian, as if I had never left, though I was fundamentally changed. At first, I found it difficult to interact with my fellow elves. I would look at a court noble and see not just their current incarnation, but echoes of who they had been in past lives. I would recall loving them, hating them, fighting alongside them in battles long forgotten. The weight of these memories threatened to overwhelm me in ordinary conversations. "Are you well, historian?" "Ah," Lady Iolana asked me during a formal dinner, noticing my distraction. "You seem troubled of late." I looked at her and saw the warrior she had been 5 lives ago, leading a charge against drow invaders. I saw the healer she had been 3 lives before that, tending wounds during the Great Plague. I saw the child she would become 2 centuries after her current life ended, born to a family not yet formed, merely preoccupied with research. I replied with a forced smile. "The archives demand much attention." She accepted this explanation readily. Why would she not? I had always been known for my scholarly dedication, my absorption in historical minutiae. She could not know that I now saw history not as words on parchment, but as lived experience flowing through my veins. Gradually, I learned to partition my awareness, to exist in the present moment while keeping the vast ocean of memory contained within manageable boundaries. I developed techniques of mental discipline that allowed me to function without constantly drowning in the past. And I watched. I observed my fellow elves with new eyes, looking for signs of remembrance. Most lived in perfect ignorance, experiencing only the faintest déjà vu or inexplicable talents. But occasionally, I would notice someone struggling with dreams too vivid to dismiss. Someone asking questions that bordered on forbidden knowledge. Someone whose eyes held the haunted look of one beginning to glimpse beyond the veil. The first I approached was Elindra, a young lawkeeper apprenticed to the court library. I found her late one night, surrounded by ancient texts, tears streaming down her face. "I keep seeing a city," she whispered when I asked what troubled her. "A city of white towers falling into the sea. I feel like I was there. I feel like I died there. But it cannot be. The fall of Aquilond happened 2,000 years ago." "What would you say," I asked carefully, "if I told you that you might indeed have been there, that what you are remembering could be more than dreams?" Her eyes widened, fear and hope warring in her expression. "I would say you speak heresy, and then I would beg you to continue." I smiled sadly. "Walk with me in the moonlight garden. There are things about our nature that are not recorded in any book you will find in this library." That night I gave Elindra her first lesson in remembrance. Not the full truth, not yet. She was not ready for the loom, for the complete unveiling of all her past lives, but enough to help her contextualize her fragments of memory, enough to prevent her from thinking herself mad or cursed. She became the first of my students. Over the decades that followed, I gathered others, never many, just one or two in a generation. Those who, like me, remembered too much to live in comfortable ignorance. I taught them the mental disciplines I had developed. I helped them integrate their fractured memories without being crushed beneath them. Some, when they were ready, I guided to the Feywild, to the laughing glade, and the loom of lives. A few chose severance, despite witnessing the full pattern and understanding the consequences. I did not judge them for this choice. Freedom means little if only one path is permitted. Most, however, chose as I had, to remember, to serve as anchors between past and future, to help guide our people through the spiral of time toward whatever distant goal the gods had set for us. We called ourselves the Trance Walkers, though we kept no formal organization, no records that might be discovered. We recognized each other through subtle signs and shared knowledge. We served in various capacities throughout Elven society, offering guidance to those who began to remember, preserving the stability of our culture while honoring the truth of our existence. Centuries passed. I continued my official role as historian of the Verdant Court, recording the linear events of our people while privately maintaining a much deeper chronicle of our cyclical journey through time. I watched generations of elves live and die and return, seeing the subtle evolution of our collective soul with each turning of the wheel. I witnessed wars and peace, triumphs and tragedies. I counseled kings and beggars, mages and warriors. Through it all, I kept the secret, truth balanced against the need for stability and hope. Truth without compassion is merely cruelty. Knowledge without wisdom is merely burden. There were costs to my choice. Relationships became complicated when I could see the entirety of a person across many lifetimes, rather than just their current incarnation. Romantic love especially proved difficult. How does one love purely when one remembers loving the same soul in 100 different forms? When one knows how each love affair ended in previous cycles? I lived largely in solitude, finding companionship among my fellow trance walkers, the only ones who truly understood the perspective that shaped my existence. We became a family of sorts, united by shared burden and purpose, and I continued to question, to seek better paths, to wonder if the system established by the gods was truly the best possible arrangement for our people. I never again contemplated the mass severance I had once planned, but neither did I accept every divine decree without challenge. 500 years after my encounter with Labellus Enereth, I made a discovery that changed everything I thought I understood about our cycle. It began with an anomaly in the archives, a reference to an elven settlement in the far north that appeared in records from the Second Age but was never mentioned again. Normally, such inconsistencies are common in historical documents, products of error or exaggeration, but this reference included a detail that caught my attention, a description of elves with skin, pale as winter moonlight, marked with patterns like frost on glass. In all my remembered lives, in all my historical research, I had never encountered elves matching this description. We have wood elves, high elves, sea elves, drow, eladrin. Each has distinctive features and coloration. None have patterns like frost on their skin. Intrigued, I began searching for other references to these frost-marked elves. I found nothing in the official histories, nothing in the ballads or epic poems, nothing in the genealogical records maintained by noble houses. But in personal journals, in merchants' logs, in the marginalia of travel narratives, I found scattered mentions, brief encounters with elves unlike any known subrace. Elves who could withstand extreme cold, who lived in isolation in the most northern reaches. Elves who claimed to remember all their past lives without the mental disciplines practiced by trance walkers. Elves who existed outside the cycle. At first, I dismissed these accounts as folklore or misidentification. Travelers often mistake fey creatures or other races for elves, but the consistency of certain details across sources separated by centuries and geography suggested something more. I took my findings to Erevan, the oldest of my fellow transwalkers, a former high priest who had stood before the loom 3 centuries before I found my way to it. Frost elves, he mused, studying the documents I had collected. There were stories when I was young, tales told to frighten children, elves who defied Corellon and were cursed with memory, elves who could not forget, could not truly die, could not escape their past. Cursed with memory, I repeated. That sounds more like us than them. Erevan smiled thinly. Perhaps. But in the stories, these frost elves were portrayed as monsters of a sort, driven mad by the weight of remembrance, cruel and capricious because they had lived too long, remembered too much. Propaganda, I suggested. Tales spread to discourage questioning of the cycle. Possibly, Erevan conceded. But why would such beings live in isolation? Why have we no confirmed contact with them in recorded history? That, I said, is what I intend to discover. Erevan's expression grew concerned. You mean to seek them out? Kaelir, even if these frost elves exist, the northern reaches are perilous. Endless winter, ice trolls, white dragons. Few who venture there return. I have died in worse places, I replied with grim humor. And if these elves truly exist outside the cycle while retaining their minds and memories, I must know how. It could change everything for our people. Or it could be a dangerous delusion, Erevan warned. What if these are not elves at all, but something else merely resembling our kind? What if they are some experiment of the gods, or of powers opposing the gods? Then I shall learn that too, I said firmly. Knowledge is what I have dedicated my lives to, old friend. I cannot turn away from this mystery. Erevan sighed, recognizing the futility of further argument. At least, take precautions. Establish a memory anchor before you go, so if you die in the frozen wastes, something of your discovery might survive into your next incarnation. A memory anchor was a technique developed by transwalkers, a way to ensure certain critical memories would carry over more strongly into the next life. It involved ritual, meditation, and sometimes physical tokens imbued with personal significance. I agreed to Erevan's suggestion, spending a month in preparation before beginning my journey northward. I told the court I was researching ancient battle sites for a comprehensive military history. None questioned my departure. As chief historian, I had often traveled for research. The journey was arduous, just as Erevan had warned. I crossed lands controlled by human kingdoms, then into the wild territories beyond their borders. As I moved further north, settlements became scarcer, the climate harsher. I hired guides who took me as far as they dared, then continued alone when even the hardiest rangers refused to proceed. The cold became my constant companion. Even with magical protections, the biting wind found ways to chill my bones. Snow blanketed the landscape in endless white, disorienting and beautiful. I trudged forward day after day, following the faintest of trails gleaned from centuries-old accounts. When the blizzard hit, I thought it would be my end. Visibility reduced to nothing, wind howling like a living creature, snow piling so quickly I could barely move through it. I sought shelter in a shallow cave, exhausting my remaining magic to create enough warmth to survive the night. I drifted in and out of consciousness, memories of past deaths bleeding into my present predicament. I had frozen to death before, during a military campaign in the Third Age. I remembered the gradual numbing, the seductive drowsiness, the final surrender to cold's embrace. I fought to stay awake, knowing sleep would likely be permanent. The figure that appeared at the cave entrance, seemed at first a hallucination, tall and slender like all elves, but with skin truly pale as moonlight, decorated with intricate patterns that did indeed resemble frost on glass, eyes of such pale blue they were almost white, hair like fresh snow falling to their waist. "You have journeyed far, memory walker," the figure said in perfect Elvish, though with an accent I had never heard in any lifetime. "Few of your kind seek us out. You are real," I whispered through cracked lips. "The frost elves." A smile touched the strange elf's face. "That is not what we call ourselves, but it will suffice. Come, you will not survive another night in this place." I tried to stand, but found my limbs unresponsive, too long exposed to the bitter cold. Without hesitation, the frost elf lifted me as if I weighed nothing, carrying me from the cave into the still raging blizzard. I expected to feel the full force of the storm, but around us was a sphere of calm, the snow parting as we moved through it. Magic, but unlike any I had encountered before. Not arcane manipulation of the weave, but something more primal, more elemental. "Who are you?" I managed to ask as we traveled. "I am Nyrith," the frost elf replied, "scout for Whispering Frosthold. I felt your presence 3 days ago and have been watching your progress. You felt me? Your kind resonate differently in the weave," Nerith explained. "Too many lives bound too tightly together. It creates a distinctive pattern that those with the sight can perceive." Before I could question further, we crested a ridge, and I beheld a sight that stole what little breath the cold had left me. A city carved entirely from ice, spires and domes and graceful arches catching what little light penetrated the storm and refracting it in rainbow patterns. Unlike the rigid, imposing architecture of human ice fortresses I had seen in past lives, this city flowed like frozen music, organic and harmonious with the harsh landscape surrounding it. Whispering Frosthold, the hidden city of the Frost Elves. A place mentioned in no official elven history, depicted on no map, yet undeniably real and breathtaking in its alien beauty. Nyrith carried me through gates of ice so clear they were nearly invisible, past guards with the same frost-patterned skin and white eyes, into the heart of the hidden city. The cold receded as we entered, though not completely. The air remained brisk, but no longer deadly, comfortable enough for my elven physiology to begin recovering from exposure. I was brought to a circular chamber whose walls were carved with symbols unlike any elven script I had ever studied. A bed of furs awaited, and Nyrith laid me upon it with surprising gentleness. "Rest now," the frost elf instructed. "When you have recovered, the Rememberers will speak with you." I asked, already feeling warmth returning to my extremities, along with the painful tingling of circulation restored. "Those who maintain our history," Nerith explained. "Those who will determine whether you are to be welcomed or expelled." A pause, then, or silenced, with that ominous statement hanging in the air. Nerith departed, leaving me alone in the strange chamber to contemplate what I had found, and what might await me among these elves who existed outside everything I thought I knew about my own kind. As I drifted into healing trance, one question burned brighter than all others in my mind. If these frost elves truly remembered all their past lives without madness or divine intervention, what else might they remember that had been hidden from the rest of elven kind? I awoke to soft light filtering through ice walls, creating prismatic patterns across the chamber. My body had recovered from the cold, though weariness from the journey still lingered in my bones. I sat up slowly, examining my surroundings more carefully than my condition had permitted upon arrival. The circular chamber was perhaps 20 feet in diameter, furnished simply but elegantly, with items crafted from materials that thrived in cold, white wood, silver, furs, and of course ice itself. The bed I rested on was built from a pale wood I did not recognize, topped with furs from Arctic beasts. A table nearby held a pitcher and cup, both carved from ice so clear they appeared to be glass. I rose and poured water from the pitcher, half expecting it to be frozen, but it flowed freely despite the cool temperature of the room. As I drank, I studied the symbols carved into the chamber walls. They were not random decorations, but a script of some kind. It reminded me somewhat of Eladrin writing from the Feywild, but with unique elements I had never encountered in any of my lives or studies. A soft chime sounded, and a portion of the wall shimmered, then seemed to dissolve, revealing a doorway where solid ice had been moments before. In the opening stood a frost elf, unlike Nerith, where my rescuer had been tall and lithe. This one was stouter, more solidly built, though still possessing the characteristic pale skin with frost patterns. Their hair was cropped short rather than flowing, and their eyes, while still that distinctive pale blue, held a sharpness that spoke of keen intellect. They said in accented Elvish, "I am Faerith, third rememberer of Whispering Frosthold. You may call me Archivist, as that approximates my function in terms you would understand." I bowed respectfully. "I am Kayla Moonshadow, Chief Historian of the Verdant Court." "We know who you are," Faerith replied, a hint of amusement in their voice. "We know all your names, across all your lives. The question before us is not who you are, but why you have come. Few of the forgetful ones seek us out, and fewer still find us." "Forgetful ones," I repeated. "It is what we call your kind," Faerith explained. "Those who live and die and return without carrying the full weight of their past. Those who remember in fragments, if at all." "I remember," I said firmly. "I stood before the loom of lives. I carry the memory of 1,000 lifetimes." Faerith's expression shifted subtly, interest replacing amusement. "Ah, a trance walker. That explains how you found us. Still, your remembrance is a pale shadow of true memory, a glimpse through frosted glass rather than clear vision." "Then help me see clearly," I requested. "I have journeyed far seeking understanding of what it means to be Elven. If your people hold knowledge that has been kept from the rest of our kind, I would learn it." Faerith studied me silently for a long moment. "Knowledge is never free, historian, especially knowledge that the gods themselves have sought to suppress. Are you prepared for the cost?" "I have faced divine censure before," I replied. "I do not fear it." "Perhaps you should," Faerith said softly. "But come, the Council of Rememberers awaits. They will decide whether your questions merit answers." I followed Faerith through corridors of ice that somehow remained solid underfoot, despite our warmth. The architecture of Whispering Frosthold revealed itself as we walked, a marvel of magical engineering. The ice did not melt, did not grow brittle, did not behave as ordinary ice would. It lived and breathed with the city's inhabitants, responding to their needs and movements. We passed other frost elves, each acknowledging Faerith with respectful nods but regarding me with expressions ranging from curiosity to open suspicion. I noted variations in their frost patterns, unique to each individual, like fingerprints rendered in delicate crystalline tracery across their skin. The council chamber, when we reached it, took my breath away. A vast dome of ice so clear it seemed we stood beneath the open sky, though the howling blizzard outside had been replaced by a serene field of stars. Beneath this impossible dome sat 7 frost elves in a semicircle, each upon a throne carved from what appeared to be solid diamond. "The Rememberers," Faerith announced, gesturing me forward. "Keepers of our history, guardians of our truth." architects of our isolation. I approached with appropriate reverence, though my historian's mind was already cataloguing everything I observed. The 7 rememberers varied in apparent age, from one who looked barely past adolescence to another who seemed ancient even by elven standards. All wore robes of white and silver, adorned with symbols matching those I had seen in my chamber. The eldest spoke first, Kayla Moonshadow, historian, trance walker, seeker of forbidden knowledge. You stand before those who remember what Corellon commanded. Be forgotten. Speak your purpose plainly. I squared my shoulders and addressed the council directly. I seek to understand the true nature of elven existence. I know of the cycle of rebirth, the binding of our souls to the weave. I know this was established by the gods for reasons they claim are benevolent. But your existence suggests there is more to the story, another path that has been hidden from us. I would know this path and why it has been kept secret. Murmurs rippled through the council. The youngest rememberer leaned forward, expression skeptical. Why should we share our truth with one who serves the very system we rejected? You are not an agent of Labellus Enereth, sent to locate those who escaped the cycle. I serve knowledge, not systems, I replied firmly. I have questioned the gods themselves. I stood before the loom ready to sever my connection to the cycle, held back only by concern for those connected to me. I come seeking truth, whatever it may be, whatever it may cost. Fine words, said another rememberer, one with intricate patterns swirling across her face like a blizzard frozen in time. But words come easily to historians and bards. What proof can you offer of your sincerity? I considered my response carefully. I can offer only this. I have lived 1,000 lives in service to the elven people. I have died in their defense, suffered for their prosperity, sacrificed for their future. If there is a truth about our nature that has been hidden, then all those lives and deaths were based on incomplete understanding. I cannot abide that. I would rather face oblivion with clear eyes than immortality built upon deception. The eldest rememberer nodded slowly, sincerely spoken, yet still, knowledge carries obligation. If we share our truth with you, what would you do with it? That would depend on the nature of the truth, I answered honestly. I would not recklessly destabilize our society or cause needless suffering, but neither would I perpetuate a fundamental lie about our existence. I would seek the middle path, as I have done as a trance walker, helping those ready to understand while protecting those who are not. The 7 rememberers exchanged glances, seeming to communicate without words. Finally, the eldest spoke again. Very well, we will share what we know, what we remember from before the forgetting. But be warned, historian. Once learned, this cannot be unlearned. Once remembered, this cannot be forgotten. Even should you die in this frozen land, far from the influence of your verdant court, the memory anchor you established before your journey would carry this knowledge into your next life. The gods would know. They would act to contain it. I had not told them of my memory anchor. That they knew of it spoke to powers of perception beyond what I had anticipated. Nevertheless, I stood my ground. I accept the risk. I have always chosen truth over comfort, knowledge over security. The eldest rememberer rose from his diamond throne. Then follow me to the chamber of first memory. There you will learn what it truly means to be elven and why some of us chose exile over participation in the great deception. The other rememberers rose as well, forming a solemn procession. Faerith gestured for me to join them, whispering, "Few outsiders have ever been granted this privilege. Whatever happens, remember that you asked for this." We descended into the depths of whispering frosthold, the ice around us growing older, denser, more primal in its energy. The magical light dimmed, replaced by a subtle glow emanating from the ice itself. Ancient magic preserved in crystal stasis. The chamber of first memory lay at the end of a long tunnel, sealed by a door of ice so black it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. The eldest rememberer pressed his palm against this impossible surface, and it responded to his touch, flowing aside like water. Beyond lay a perfect sphere of clear ice, suspended within a larger chamber. Inside the sphere floated what appeared to be a single snowflake, enlarged to the size of my palm, every intricate branch and crystal facet preserved in perfect detail. The first memory, the eldest rememberer intoned, carried from the Dawn War itself, preserved through every cataclysm, every reshaping of the world. Touch it, historian, if you truly wish to know. Not the interpretations of gods, the frost-patterned elf replied. Not the sanitized histories recorded in your archives. You will experience the true beginning, the moment that defined what all elves would become. As it actually happened, I hesitated only briefly before pressing my palm against the ice sphere. It yielded like warm wax, allowing my hand to pass through until my fingers brushed the floating snowflake. The world dissolved around me, and memory not my own flooded my consciousness. I stand among the first elves, newly born from Corellon's blood, spilled during the battle with Groomsh. We are divine fragments, slivers of godhood, given form and purpose. The world is young, raw with creation energy. The boundaries between planes are fluid, reality itself malleable to thought and will. Corellon watches us with love and pride, his perfect form radiating light that nourishes our nascent spirits. We are his children, his legacy, his defense against the chaos of creation. We are few in number but vast in potential, each containing a spark of divine essence. You shall be my emissaries in this new world, he tells us, his voice like music given, meaning, you shall preserve beauty and magic against the corruption of Groomsh and his kind. You shall live in harmony with creation, neither dominating it as the humans will, nor isolated from it as the dwarves shall be. We accept this purpose with joy and gratitude. We build the first elven settlements, creating beauty that makes even the gods weep with appreciation. We develop magic drawn directly from the weave, which in these early days responds to our touch like a lover, eager and yielding. But as centuries pass, questions arise. We discover that unlike the other mortal races, we do not truly die. When our physical forms perish, our souls return to Arvandor, Corellon's divine realm, where we exist in bliss until choosing to be reborn. This cycle seems natural to us, an extension of our divine origin. Yet, some among us begin to wonder why we alone experience this cycle, why we alone retain our connection to divinity, while other races live brief lives and pass beyond. Laerith, wisest of the first elves, brings this question before Corellon during a time of revelation. Beloved Creator, Laerith asks, why do we alone return? Why do we alone remember our past lives, while other races forget? Corellon's expression grows troubled. Because you are different, because you carry my essence within you. Are we then not truly mortal? Laerith presses. Are we demigods rather than mere elves? You are what you choose to be, Corellon replies, his words weighted with meaning beyond our comprehension. Your nature is not fixed as other races are. Your potential is bounded only by your imagination and will. These words spark debate among the first elves. If our nature is not fixed, if our potential is limited only by will, then what might we become? Could we ascend beyond our current state? Could we achieve true divinity ourselves? Experiments begin. Rituals are developed. Elves who show the greatest magical aptitude and spiritual insight form a conclave dedicated to exploring the limits of our divine inheritance. They call themselves the Ascendants. The Ascendants discover that by pooling their divine essence, by merging their souls temporarily through complex magical practices, they can touch greater power than any individual elf could access. They learn to manipulate the weave in ways that alarm the gods themselves. They begin to reshape portions of reality according to their vision rather than the divine plan. Corellon watches these developments with growing concern. He consults with other deities in the emerging pantheon. Sehanin argues for patience, suggesting the Ascendants will learn the natural limitations of their power through experience. Labalus Enereth counsels intervention, warning that unchecked ambition could lead to disaster. The turning point comes when the Ascendants succeed in creating a demiplane, a small reality entirely of their own making, outside the jurisdiction of established divine territories. This act of creation, mimicking the god's own power, cannot be ignored. Corellon appears before the Ascendants, his radiance terrible in its intensity. "You go too far," he declares. "You were given freedom to flourish, not to challenge the cosmic order." Ildre, leader of the Ascendants, stands firm. "You said our nature is not fixed. You said our potential is bounded only by will. We have willed ourselves toward divinity, as is our birthright as your children. Why do you now seek to limit us? Because you do not understand the responsibilities of godhood." Corellon replies, "Because power without wisdom leads only to destruction. Look what became of Grumsh when he sought power beyond his comprehension." "We are not Grumsh," Ildre counters. "We seek not to destroy, but to create, not to dominate, but to transcend. You gave us divine essence. Did you expect us never to explore its potential?" The debate escalates, other gods drawn by the confrontation. Positions harden on both sides. The Ascendants refuse to abandon their work. Corellon refuses to permit its continuation. Finally, Corellon issues an ultimatum. "Return to your proper place within the order I have established, or face restriction of the very gifts that allow your ambition." The Ascendants confer among themselves. Most choose submission, recognizing the futility of opposing the united will of the Pantheon. But Ildre and a core group of the most dedicated Ascendants make a different choice. "We will not surrender what is rightfully ours," Ildre declares. "If we cannot ascend with your blessing, we will ascend despite your prohibition." They attempt a ritual more ambitious than any previous working, seeking to draw divine energy directly from the weave itself, rather than merely channeling what already resided within their souls. They believe this will elevate them beyond Corellon's ability to constrain them. The ritual goes catastrophically wrong. The weave, responsive to divine will, has been subtly altered by the side concerned pantheon. Instead of drawing power, the Ascendants find their existing divine essence being drained from them, pulled into the weave, and dispersed. They cry out in agony and betrayal as their connection to divinity, their inheritance from Corellon, is forcibly extracted. But the process cannot be controlled precisely. The divine essence, once removed, does not simply disappear. It exists in the weave as potential, as memory, as pattern, and the elves, created from divine blood, remain connected to the weave more intimately than any other mortal race. This connection becomes the basis for the cycle of rebirth, no longer voluntary as it once was, no longer a conscious choice to return from Arvandor, but an automatic process. The divine essence recognizes itself across the weave, seeks to reunite with itself, pulls the elven soul back into material form again and again. And the memory of this betrayal, this cosmic struggle between creator and created, is deemed too dangerous to preserve. Labelas Enereth, god of time and memory, implements the great forgetting. Each cycle of rebirth will wash away most memories of past lives. The elven soul will retain talents, preferences, spiritual growth, but not the dangerous knowledge of its true origin and potential. Only a few escape this fate. Those who foresaw Corellon's intervention and shielded themselves from the ritual's backlash. Those who fled to the furthest reaches of the planes, beyond the immediate influence of the Pantheon. Those who developed methods to preserve their complete memory through each rebirth. These become the ancestors of the Frost Elves, choosing exile and isolation over participation in the cycle of divine control. They carry the unaltered memory of elven origin through the ages, preserving the truth that the gods decreed must be forgotten. The memory fades, and I return to myself, standing in the chamber of first memory among the rememberers of whispering Frosthold. But I am, fundamentally, changed by what I have witnessed. The true history of my people, unfiltered by divine revision, burns in my consciousness like a cold fire. I staggered back from the ice sphere, my mind reeling from the revelation. The rememberers watched me with expressions ranging from sympathy to grim satisfaction. "Now you understand," the eldest said softly. "Now you know why we chose exile over submission, why we endure the burden of complete memory rather than accept the comfort of divine censorship. We are not merely Corellon's children," I whispered, struggling to integrate this new knowledge with everything I had believed for 1,000 lifetimes. We are fragments of divinity, bound in mortal form. The cycle is not a gift, but a containment system. "Yes," affirmed the youngest rememberer, voice hard with ancient anger. "Our rebirth is not evolution towards some grand divine purpose, as Labelas Enereth claimed when you stood before the loom. It is stagnation, limitation. The gods fear what we might become if we ever truly remembered our origin and potential." I looked around at the Frost Elves, seeing them anew. The patterns on their skin were not merely decorative or adaptations to cold. They were manifestations of their unbound connection to the weave, the divine essence within them expressing itself without the limitations imposed on other elves. "But how did you escape the forgetting?" I asked. "How do you retain full memory through each rebirth?" Faerith gestured to the black ice that had sealed the chamber. "The substance we call night ice, formed in the moment of the first forgetting, when some of our ancestors shielded themselves with magic drawn from the void between planes. It absorbs and neutralizes divine influence, including the memory suppression encoded in the cycle of rebirth. We maintain our isolation because we must," added the rememberer with storm patterns across her face. "Contact with the wider world, with elves, still bound to the cycle, would first with this inevitably draw divine attention." "The gods would not allow our continued existence if they could prevent it." The cycle of rebirth, which I had come to accept as a natural part of elven existence, was in fact an artificial constraint. The serene contentment that characterized my people was not spiritual evolution but enforced complacency. The gods I had revered, even when questioning their methods, had been actively suppressing the true potential of elvenkind for eons. "What is your purpose now?" I asked the rememberers. "Do you seek to break the cycle for all elves? To challenge the gods again?" The eldest rememberer shook his head. "We are too few, and the gods too powerful in this age. The time of potential godhood for our kind has passed. The weave has been rewoven too many times, reality itself solidified around the divine order as it now exists, then why preserve this knowledge at all? Why continue to exist, separate from other elves? Because truth has value beyond utility, the youngest rememberer replied passionately. Because memory, however painful, is preferable to comfortable delusion. Because someone must remember what was stolen from us, even if we can never reclaim it. I recognized in her words echoes of my own justification for becoming a trance walker, the commitment to truth for its own sake, regardless of consequences, the refusal to accept divine decree without question. And now I remember as well, I said quietly. What would you have me do with this knowledge? The 7 rememberers exchanged glances again. That silent communication I could not interpret. Finally, the eldest spoke. That choice belongs to you alone, historian. You may return to the verdant court and continue as you have, keeping this deeper truth hidden even from your fellow trance walkers. You may choose to join us in exile, adding your memories to our collective preservation of the past. Or you may attempt what we have not dared, to spread this knowledge among the forgetful ones, to challenge the divine order directly. I considered each option carefully. Return and live a lie, even more profound than the one I had lived before. Join these frost elves in isolated preservation of a truth that changed nothing, or become a revolutionary, attempting to awaken other elves to their suppressed potential. None seemed satisfactory. None addressed the fundamental question that now burned in my mind. If elves were meant to be more than we now are, if our divinity was stolen rather than freely surrendered, what might we yet become? Not gods, perhaps, but something greater than our current constrained existence. There is another path, I said finally. Not revelation to all, which would bring divine retribution. Not complete secrecy, which preserves the status quo, but selective awakening of those ready to understand. A slow, careful expansion of remembrance beyond your isolated community and beyond the limited perception of trance walkers. A dangerous proposition, Faerith observed. The gods would notice eventually. Not if done with sufficient subtlety, I countered. Not if presented as an extension of the existing system rather than a challenge to it. I outlined my vision, a network of awakened elves spanning different communities, different sub-races, gradually reclaiming portions of our suppressed potential without directly challenging divine authority. Not seeking godhood as the ascendants had, but simply greater self-determination within our existing nature. Ambitious, the eldest rememberer commented when I finished. Perhaps foolhardy, but intriguing nonetheless. Would you support such an endeavor? I asked directly. Would you share your methods of complete remembrance? Your protection against divine oversight? The rememberers deliberated among themselves, their discussion conducted in a language I did not recognize, presumably their own private tongue, developed during millennia of isolation. Finally, they turned back to me. We will provide you with a fragment of Nightis, the eldest declared. Enough to shield yourself and a few others from the forgetting during rebirth. We will teach you rituals to identify those whose souls retain the greatest potential for awakening. But we will not leave our isolation, nor directly involve ourselves in your work among the forgetful ones. It was more than I had expected. Honestly, I am grateful for this much, I said with a deep bow. Do not thank us yet, historian, the youngest rememberer warned. The path you propose carries tremendous risk. You will walk a knife's edge between divine awareness and mortal ignorance. One misstep could bring the full attention of the Pantheon upon you. I have lived 1,000 lives in ignorance, I replied firmly. I would rather live one life in dangerous truth than 1,000 more in comfortable delusion. And so began my final and greatest work as Braingoes, historian of the Verdant Court. I spent a month among the Frost Elves, learning their techniques of complete remembrance, studying the properties of night ice, mastering rituals to identify souls with the greatest potential for awakening. When I departed Whispering Frosthold, I carried with me knowledge that no forgetful one had possessed since the Dawn War. I carried a fragment of night ice encased in enchanted crystal, hanging on a chain around my neck, hidden from casual detection by layers of illusion. And I carried a purpose that would define not just this life, but all my future incarnations, to gradually, carefully, inexorably expand the boundaries of what it means to be Elven, not to achieve godhood as the ancient ascendants had sought, not to overthrow the divine order as revolutionaries might desire, but simply to reclaim the self-determination that was our birthright, the freedom to define our own nature that Corellon himself had originally granted. I returned to the verdant court, changed in ways invisible to most observers. I resumed my duties as chief historian, continuing to guide those who remembered too much toward acceptance rather than rebellion. But now I watched for special cases, for souls that retained unusual connections to the weave, for elves who showed signs of the divine potential that lay dormant in all our kind. Over decades, I gathered a small circle of such individuals. I shared with them not the full truth learned from the Frost Elves, but carefully measured portions, preparing them gradually for greater awakening. I taught them to create memory anchors of unprecedented strength. I showed them how to access portions of the weave normally closed to mortal manipulation. We called ourselves the Unfettered, though like the trance walkers before us, we kept no formal organization, no records that might be discovered. We operated in the shadows of Elven society, a secret within a secret, a truth behind the hidden truth. And when I died, as eventually I must, I died, secure in the knowledge that I would remember everything in my next incarnation. The night ice would preserve my purpose through the transition, shield me from the divine forgetting that had constrained Elven potential for eons. My name is Kalia Moonshadow. I have lived 1,000 lives in the shadow of a cosmic lie. I have glimpsed the truth of what elves were meant to be. And though it may take 1,000 lives more, I will see my people free to choose their own nature, as was our first gift from our divine creator. This is my testimony. This is my confession. This is my prayer to whatever true gods may exist beyond the veil we cannot pierce. Judge me not by the chaos I may unleash, but by the truth I have sought to reveal. For what is an elf but memory made flesh? And what is flesh without the freedom to truly live?